Good morning, still for us in central US. Good afternoon for many others out there. Uh, Happy Friday, LinkedIn, here with a special episode. Uh, Rashida is here to talk us through building a data model and why that's so important. Topics that I love because it's not hard to find a portal where the data model is not in good shape. So thanks for coming by today, Rashida.
Of course, yeah, really happy to be here. It's one of the really hot topics at Rev Partners as well, and just in general in RevOps. And everybody also I've seen that has a different definition of what a data model is. So yeah, I'm really happy to chat about that, tell you our perspective, and then also hear back from you, Chris.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun because so much of this is in the nuance of the words that we used, and I love the way you put it right before we press play. Like the way I think about it is like we should not. And I know not everybody will agree with this, but if we're getting paid or people are counting on us to build their own data models, right? Like we're so far behind where we could be, right? When we get there and they don't understand current state, and they don't understand why this is important, we could be starting to build stuff right now for them, but instead we got to help them understand these really fairly basic but complex topics that if everybody knew this, right? And everybody that was using HubSpot understood this topic and was executing, the world would be a better place, literally, right? So I'm so happy that you said it that way, and that's why I think it's easy to connect to the problems of digital transformation and lack of CRM adoption.
Hmm.
If we help solve for those very big things, like literally, the world will be, better. People enjoy their jobs. We'll be doing better business, throughout the world. So it's it's refreshing to hear that take for sure. Is that why you're? I'm guessing that's why you're passionate about this topic.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the beauty of the data model is that it's not even limited to HubSpot. This is just how you need to think about your business as a whole. And of course, like it's very immature, I think, at this point to even assume that you can have an all-in-one solution. There are other apps, like millions of other apps, out there, and a lot of businesses do use multiple apps. It's just to make sure that each of those are actually needed. Are they adopted? How do they affect your KPIs? And what is the most important metric to track for each business? I think just getting alignment and defining that is where it all starts. And again, as I said, it's not even just limited to HubSpot, which is why this is so amazing, in my opinion.
Yes, alignment, common language to even get aligned, and builds
Hmm.
trust across teams. Like all these things we hear about, data model goes a long way when you don't have to talk about that every week, right? Uh,
Yeah.
a lot of time gets spent talking about which data matters, like why this data is more important or not right or not accurate, and can we fix it? Can we not? And this system conversation, right? I always try to help people like we have to build one system. It's very rare, especially in bigger businesses, where the place that shows you the best unified view of the customer, we believe to be HubSpot,
Hmm.
still shouldn't be doing all of the things that a business needs, like accounting and ERP and inventory management, a lot of these other things. So, of course, like there's people working out of the other systems because they need to be doing those things. So that has to be their source of truth. Then we have customer data model over here. That's the source of truth. So that together, the system is the source of truth. And for our customer facing teams, it's over in HubSpot. For our operations teams, it could be somewhere else, and that's okay as long as we know all those systems are working together to tell a true story, right?
Exactly. It's how connected they are. And exactly as you said, like for example, if somebody's doing Instagram ads, they just want to live in Instagram. They don't want to live in HubSpot, maybe. but it's the marketing manager who needs to know how those ads are performing versus Facebook versus LinkedIn versus everything else. So I need to see the whole picture. So yes, people can be using different platforms for their use case, but then you need one platform to unify everything, or you need proper integrated solutions, so that when the leader comes in and steps in and asks the question, like, how is the health of my business, how are my people doing, how are my processes doing, where is my money going, when investors ask that question, you can paint the whole picture, like, this is how everything is doing, and this is the overall health of the business.
Yeah. And so much. I think some are learning. Like it's not hard to get them on board with, like, everybody knows how important human relationships are and the relationships with customers, and they believe they're a customer centric, business. I think every leader would suggest that, even though the data says otherwise. Um, but that's where we help them see the data, right? That says otherwise, because it doesn't matter if this customer orders 100 times a month and brings in a lot of top line. If in between those orders they're emailing our team 10 times and like pretty much evaporating the margin because
Mhm.
it's so hard to serve them as a customer. And that's where it's okay. The balance sheet looks okay. The revenue looks okay, but the relationship is not healthy, like at all, right? And that balance, that revenue can go away very quickly when somebody provides a healthy relationship. And data is one of the pieces, but it should be the main piece. It's one of the things we can control. Like there's few things in the business I think we can control. The way we manage our own data is one of those things. And there's a wealth of information in HubSpot, and most of your systems probably, that when you get the data model right, it just unlocks, you get visibility. And it doesn't have to be like, it's never going to be complete visibility right away, but you start chipping away at one less question to ask, or one less thing to be misinforming across the business, right? That we cover every meeting. And then you just start chipping away and build this foundation of trusted data. And now watch your meetings just become places for insight instead of places for like data management during the meeting.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said. Just hung up on one sentence where you said that we can control data. So the only tweak I would make is that we should control data. I don't think everybody can control data at this point. Yeah,
Right.
but you're right.
Yeah.
It's something that can be controlled if you know how to, and if you're strategic with it.
Right. Yeah. That's where even there, the tool's not going to do it for you. Right. And I
Mhm.
think that's the misunderstanding. Like, oh, we can do lead scoring. Let's go get HubSpot. It's like,
Mhm.
well, if we just randomly decide what the scores are, then the lead scoring isn't gonna help us. It's gonna cause a lot of misalignment, and
Mhm.
that's where I think ultimately awareness is probably a better way to put it. Like,
Yes.
because there is, like you say, a lot of data that is out there, word of mouth, like social media, dark funnel stuff
Mhm.
that we can't control, we can't measure, but inherently we know that it's important to healthy relationships, and that's where some of that qualitative data starts to come into play. So I'm curious, like, I've been wanting to learn more about bow tie model and winning by design. I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of trying to find some way to standardize these complex data models, and like you say, not from a HubSpot like contact deals tickets perspective, from what the customer journey, right? Because it's always an interesting conversation when every business thinks that they're different, right?
Yeah.
um, but then when you think about, I've gone back and forth a lot, and now I realize after working with them, they are different, but it's not because of the product or service that they sell. It's because of the people inside of the business is a different makeup every time, and champions are going to be different, and just all that is different. But when it comes to customer experience, like we know that customers, they want to feel seen, They want to feel heard. They want quick response times, and they want their expectations met. They don't even need them to be exceeded. They just want to know what's going to happen next and then have you do that thing, right? And I don't
Mhm.
think any business can deny that those things are true for their business. So we should, in theory, be able to build some standardization around that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love the fact how you touched on the people side of things, because yes, you're right. Every business is different because the people are different. This is a really good, I think, takeaway from the presentation, from the podcast already. I would say. But yes, like we should absolutely be able to build some standardization around the business as a whole, and process and data, as we said. And I think that's why I really like being in RevOps, and I'm so passionate about it, because one, a lot of businesses do have different use cases and definitions for RevOps. We know what it should be, but then RevOps, because it is so broadly defined, we can come in and then grow with the business. So we can come in and meet the business where they're at. Maybe they just need an admin right now. Maybe they just need some best practices right now. Then eventually, once you go through the foundations, then we can also be this, and then we can also be this, and we can also be sales enablement, and we can also be so many other things. So yeah, I think standardization, and I think I'm talking literally about the last slide of the presentation that I have right now, but it all starts with that. Like you create a standard, you start building towards that, and then you grow and you mature. Your RevOps model matures as your business needs mature. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's why I'd like, feel free to share as
Yeah.
needed, and maybe we can jump around. And because I
Yeah.
think a lot of
Let's
these
do it.
diagrams are very helpful in understanding,
Yeah.
one, maybe some better ways to think about things, but two, like just kind of highlighting words and their meanings and definitions and how, you might run into confusion around those things, and
Mhm.
maybe some ideas for how to move through that inside of your organization, because that's the thing, like you cannot ignore this part. Like it's almost like, I was that annoying guy where it's like, no, I need to know that we both understand this specific word the same way, because you're going to see it in
Mm.
they're going to be exposed to it on LinkedIn from other people talking about it. Like it's just a part of go to market right now. So if we don't agree on what that means, there's just so many ways to get misaligned, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is so funny, because this is actually the thing that I was talking to with one of my strategists as well. Because getting on the same page goes with everything, right? Whether it's like managing your employee, managing your partner expectations, it's just like, yeah, I love that. So please do stop me whenever you feel like you need to repeat back whatever I'm saying, so that I know that what I'm saying is also what you're understanding, so that we have the same
Yes,
definition.
will do.
Okay, let's get into it. So I just want to call this Rev Partners bow tie model, because I literally have learned everything about RevOps from Rev Partners, which is exciting, and HubSpot as well, because just by using HubSpot, you literally know like how a business should function. So a quick agenda and the end state of why we're even talking about the data model. I think we've covered a little bit, but just to even add more color, and I'll go into more detail in the upcoming slides, is RevOps needs some building blocks so that we can function. And as we said, like, we can meet organizations where they are for RevOps, but to actually get to the function of RevOps and what it actually needs to be for a business, it needs some building blocks, right? So we'll understand how business models, go to market models, and all of that layer into RevOps function. I have a slide, we'll get more clarity there. Of course, we'll understand what the data model is, how to create a bow tie model based on your business model, right? And then talk about primary KPIs, and we'll see the difference of what is the primary KPI, what are the metrics each business, depending on their revenue model, should track, what are the secondary KPIs, and how you start thinking about primary, secondary, that sort of stuff. Sounds good so far?
Sounds great.
Awesome. Okay, just another touch base, because we're talking about RevOps. RevOps, these are the three pillars that we need to think of RevOps as. Okay, we create the source of truth. right? So we create those systems of record where you can record your data and you can come back and look at what the truth is, what's happening right now. We want to create efficiencies. We want to drive efficiencies across teams, reduce friction, make sure that we're reducing time. So just a general idea of like we want to create efficiencies for the business. And of course, we also want to create visibility. So we want to create accurate data so that we can derive insights, right? So not just, so we're creating the source of truth that everybody is performing, doing their actions in these particular systems. This is where you go and see what your marketing team is doing, sales team is doing, success team is doing, media team, whatever it is. And then you're also creating visibility, and so that you can, the leaders can derive insights. Okay, I know this is what they're doing. Is this what they're supposed to be doing, or do we need to go in and change things? So RevOps, which is like another thing that I love about RevOps, is that we can be this impartial guide for the business, right? Because yes, we are tracking what marketing, sales, and everybody's doing, and then we can come in as a third party impartial guide, because we have nothing to do with, we don't need to take sides, and we can just come in and say, hey marketing, if you do this better, it's going to help sales with this, and that's going to help with the revenue, that sort of stuff. So
Ah,
these are the pillars.
it's
Yeah.
imperative. That's why it's challenging to see businesses not adopt it because they don't know how to create the space for it, right?
Mhm.
Meanwhile, they have like quality managers that are kind of outside all the processes. They have safety committees that have grab people from, every department. This is the same deal because a lot of the reason why every business is different is because let's say in the case, maybe they have HubSpot and there's an accidental admin. Sometimes that's the marketing person. Sometimes that's the person that's in charge of the website.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a sales, admin person that just got to make the quotes work. Sometimes it's right. And whether we want to believe it or not, when the business leader, and this is from my experience where I'm the marketing guy, I'm leading the change and I'm being asked to change. But when I'm known as the marketing guy, and then I go try and talk to sales and I go try and talk to service, no matter how unbiased I try to be, I'm still the marketing guy. And everything is driven through that lens where, oh, you just care about the leads or you care about this. And I've got to do my job to close deals and I'm worried about my compensation. Because the
Mhm.
same thing happens when it's sales talking to service. Like service, oh, you're just worried about like closing more deals and we just want to take care of customers. Like all this stuff happens. So when you can pull out and have this person that is not necessarily, they're not in charge of all these teams, but they have some level of jurisdiction to be able to create, some change in process and really drive these efficiencies.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I just love doing what I do, right? Like and I know this is like a sidetrack, but I even had a dream 2 nights ago where I get into marketing and I'm onboarding this new job. And I was like, what the hell did I do with my life? I was in RevOps, for God's sake. How did I get into just marketing? So I guess
Oh
all.
man, glad that was a dream, maybe a nightmare sounded like. But we're back here. It's safe here.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. So again, just like visualizing, this is the purpose of revenue operations. Not going too much into detail, but just like you organize and you process data, you create the report which creates those insights, and that helps you improve your processes and performance. So thinking, knowing that this is the context that RevOps works with, let's talk about all the building blocks.
Let's
So
you mind just going back real quick
yeah, sure.
because I always try to help people like the meetings that everybody hates, where you just talk for 60 minutes a week or 60 minutes a month. Everybody gets frustrated. Nothing gets done, right? It's because we start at it from a very reactive place in this red square over here, where
Mhm.
it's improved process or performance. Something is very wrong. We don't have processes. We don't have documentation. So we spend the meeting every single time verbally organizing and processing the data. Like that's what happens. We look at the spreadsheet, whatever we can to try and understand the problem. We disagree on what it all means. We don't even get to a viable report, right? And then we spend all of our time going back between this green and red. This is
Mhm.
why we talk about common language and like once you get to this point where you don't spend the time on those meetings, organizing process and data, now you have a chance to get to the insights. Otherwise, you get a lot of different insights about your business, but none of the ones that are going to move you forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's like every organization deals with this where people just have the hunch, like I know this is the problem, I know this is why we're not growing, but you can't prove it, right? And then unless you prove it, and you don't even prioritize proving it. It's like, no, just believe what I'm saying. And then if you don't believe that, it's like, I told you so. That's just what happens all the time,
It's
right?
it's very hard to get. It's hard. I'll say it's easier to make it not personal
Mm-hmm.
and not feel close to personal when you have the system doing it for you. When everybody's looking at the same report, like it's up to date. Okay, it's impossible at this point that somebody is calling out or creating this data to try and impact me as a person, right? That's one of the most important kind of side benefits that people don't talk a lot about is it's when you're verbally, just having constructive conversations even like it can be very hard to not make it feel personal on either side of that, especially when you're on different teams.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why I'm here, right, talking about data models, because it's hard to do this, but there is a way to do this if you do it right. I feel like
Yes.
a teacher right now.
Hey, that's why we're here.
Okay, so these are the building blocks of RevOps, right? So as you can see, RevOps is on the top. Like this is the fundamental, but you need so much before you can actually get to doing actual RevOps stuff, right? Ignore lifecycle stages and all of that right now. That's not important to focus on. What we want to talk about is again the data model in the middle. But of course, it all starts with the business model first. What are you doing? How are you making money? Then you define what is your marketing go-to-market motion, sales, CS, and that's when you start thinking about the data model, because now that you know the product and business that you have, now that you know that you have these teams, how do I track their performance? And just to make it a little more clear, business model is when businesses are just thinking, how do we make money? This is a business, this is a hobby, or this is a business, like, Shark Tank experience. This is a business, we're making money. This is, then we talk about how do we sell our service or business? How do we go to market? How is marketing team doing? What is the sales team going to do? What is the CS team going to do? You at least have a structure there. And that's when you start thinking about how do we report on company performance. So for everybody who's just thinking, okay, is this data model for us? If you have a business, if you have these teams, you need to have a data model to be able to report on your company performance, right? Then you start thinking about, again, like this is not just in order, but everything just goes hand in hand. How do your teams work together once you have the data model? How do you hit your growth targets? But once you have the data model, you can do that. How do you organize data? What should the tech stack look like? And then of course RevOps helps to answer, where do we start? Like what is the thing that we need right now in our business, and what are the things that we need to start doing for all of our growth targets, and to make sure that we have a sustainable business, not just a growing business where we get money from the investors and we're growing. We are creating this sustainable business model that we know we can last in this business for longer. I'm going to pause for a second.
Oh man.
I know we can
Uh,
spend like 2 hours just on this.
well, I think the insight for me as it's presented like this, I mean, you say it's not necessarily in order, but when you answer it in order from the bottom up, you're going to be a lot more successful. Because
Absolutely.
I was brought into organizations as a growth leader, right? So we start there at how do we hit growth targets, like
Mhm.
AKA how do we get more leads, right? More pipeline, whatever. That's always where we start, right? But then when you have a systems mindset, and I didn't necessarily know what RevOps was until I, left and started on my own. So I was very much growth and customer experience, and I knew that there were problems underneath, right? When we did the job of like getting into the big pharma company that we hadn't been able to get into for 13 years, and then we can't ship stuff that year, so we lose the business, right? That's the operating model, like
Mm-hmm.
not working to support, right, what you're asking growth to do, right? And so since I'm brought in, and that's, we haven't really, because all this I think is important to note that this is related to customer facing teams in large part. We're talking about customer data, not necessarily production data, manufacturing data. That stuff has been like, Lean Six Sigma. They've been all over this for a long time, right? So in terms of customer data, like if we start at growth, because that's how we get more money, we go to shows and then leads happen, right? We haven't done anything below this, right? So we
Right.
come in as growth leaders. That's like, okay, let's get some tools. And we start at the tech stack that we're asked to do these top three things, like without any of the bottom things, while also
Mhm.
not being in charge or responsible or have any authority over the bottom things. And of course, it's not going to work when that's the case.
That's exactly it. I know, which is why I think a lot of customers that we are, at least Rev Partners, is seeing is when they have this new leader who's responsible for all these growth metrics, and they go like, "I am blind. I have no idea what to focus on. Like, you guys need to sort your stuff together before you even ask me to do something." So yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. If that's why, the first statement that we started with was, if people just start doing this, don't care if you hire us, just do this internally, but just educate yourself that this is how you should run a business in 2024. This is not like 1900. I don't even know what year would this ever work in, or would this be sustainable in. I think never. But at least at this point where you have AI, you have ads, you have platforms who are controlling their user behavior, there's so much change that's going on. If you're not thinking through all these strategies and just taking it one day at a time, sorry, my friend, you're not going to be in this market for long, right?
Yeah, and
So,
that's so true. And like I think another maybe more tangible way to think about this, especially in regard to this model, like
mhm,
how often, like at least for me, I shouldn't project too much on everybody else, but like when you're asked for new leads or new pipeline, and it takes 3 weeks to get a quote done, right? That is when everything is working, but except for the sales GTM. And when I think that's the difference in why we need to figure this out right now. Companies have gotten away with for a long time relying a lot on price and being able to cut prices when needed to win business, which is something any human being can do in the moment, right?
mhm.
Like I can just decide in a conversation. Now that we know that convenience and response times are just as important as price, sometimes more important, that requires a system and processes. You can't just turn on like response times throughout the journey. So that's why, if you can find those points, especially if it is quoting, that's where as a RevOps individual, you can find something like that is like integral to like the revenue and get some real quick adoption in ways you haven't been able to before when you find something like that the sales team, really cares about.
Absolutely, yes. And which is why I think, as you said, like it all starts with just the ability to track. How do you even know that it takes you 3 hours on an average to create a quote? You don't unless you're doing it. So nobody else can know that context and make that decision. But if you're going through the data model and you're going through those metrics with the team, as you said, right? We start those RevOps meetings with, this is the problem, this is what we need to do. But if we go through the whole, this is the data we are seeing, this is the problem that we are seeing, this is why this is a problem, and this is why this can solve for it. Which is why HubSpot created the flywheel, right? Like it all needs to work together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that those are great examples. Thanks for sharing, Chris. Okay, so just to give everybody an idea, again, like we can spend hours talking about this, but this is what we mean when we're talking about sales, marketing, and CS go-to-market models. What you need to first define that for your business. Are you a PLG, product led growth, which is where you'll be heavy on your marketing and inbound leads? You need to have a community so that people can go in and self serve, ask questions, get engaged, and really get on with the product. If you're a one stage business, I know we just have like 15 minutes or so, so I'll breeze through this a little, but Chris, please stop me if you want to explain a little bit more. If you're one stage where all your marketing leads are going to sales, you still need inbound. You need a help desk motion as well, where people can come in and ask questions to be able to engage more with your business. Prospect or so two stage is where you have marketing, you have BDR and AE. So that's your two stage sales process, right? You need a prospecting motion there to help your marketing and inbound. And you also need, you would segment your CST by volume, right? Like every person will hold 5 accounts or 10 accounts or something like that. That's just an example. So just again, just to understand the key, all the white blocks with the green border are sales go-to-market motions. Black ones are marketing, and these gray ones are for CS. So as you can see, with every shift, your marketing, sales, CS, all strategies change. Correct? So if you have an account-based marketing, you need field sales to support that. Or maybe the other way around. It starts with defining your sales. If you need field sales agents, you need account-based marketing motion, and you really have segments for your CS team. Like this is mid market, this is something like that, whatever your segments are. And if you have named accounts, if you work with really few accounts, which give you a lot of revenue, each account gives you a lot of revenue, then you need to be really targeted in your marketing. And even your CS team, they need to have fewer accounts. So they're account managers really at that point. So as you see, like depending on how you go to market, your all your motions will change: marketing, sales, CS, all of that. And depending on that, then we'll talk about the data model. So just wanted to give a quick overview first. Any
Yeah.
thoughts?
And as we move forward, like the complexity from when a business has more than one of these, which
Mm-hmm.
most businesses do,
Yep.
right? This is where we like can't do all this in one deal pipeline, or one ticket pipeline or one company record, right? Like the days of like, trying to minimize, that's where this data model um, to support the kind of picture you're trying to see. Like people get hung up on what CRM stands for, customer relationship management. Like, oh, okay, only customer data. And I only can have one person on the deal. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, meanwhile, the supply chain is very much impacting like lead times and customer expectations. And like, why wouldn't you want those emails inside of your CRM, right? So, one of the ways I kind of help people maybe think about a little bit differently is, at least in HubSpot's case, I wouldn't say this for every CRM, but we can think about it as a communication and relationship management, platform, so that if we have a relationship that we care about with a human being, get the information in HubSpot, please.
Please being very important.
Yes.
That's all RevOps can do. Please just do it. Or we'll call you up on like our next meeting, something like that.
Yeah.
So and yeah, you're exactly right. So that is one of the things that even winning by design, uh, they really got me thinking through. That is that it's difficult for businesses to survive and create this sustainable revenue. So like we all know, to get $1 from a business, if you need to add $1, which is a sales rep, then you're not making any profit. But if this $1 customer renews, then you'll make $1 next year. But to be able to retain that customer, if you're adding another CS rep with another dollar, then you're not breaking even for 2 years. And then you need them to stay with you for 3 years so that you can make $1. So that's the bet that you're doing. And with every additional type of business that you have, so if you have one stage, if you have PLG and two stage, you need those many resources. And then like your retention just becomes harder and harder. And that's the funny part, like hardly anybody is focusing about it. Like everybody, this is the buzzword I think right now, like the latest buzzword, retention. But I don't think businesses get that, like why it's important or why they should be focused on retention now. Like hardly anybody comes to rev partners to solve their retention problem. They come to us to solve their marketing and sales and things like that. But it's like, yes, like once we solve that, just make sure that this is also a problem that's not going to go away if you don't talk about it. Like it's going to be there. So
Yeah. No, that resonates a lot because when we started our our agency, and I made a specific point. Like, first of all, we're not going to call ourselves a marketing like agency. I don't want to have those conversations anymore. People that disagree on what that word means. But like, I already proved that I could get buy-in for the growth stuff, for the customer experience stuff. But I would run into roadblocks when it came to customer data and ERPs and CRMs. And like, so that's why I created the portal, right? The, the order portal,
Mm-hmm.
where if we can't even protect the money that we're already getting, like by creating better customer experiences, and when the customers are asking for better access, like if I give you $500,000, I should not have to ask you every day what the status of my order is, right? Domino's, I pay $8 and I always know where I know the entire lifetime of the whole pizza, right? But I give you $500,000 and I'm always in the dark, right? And that is almost 100% change management. It's like $10,000. It's a $10,000 project when HubSpot's involved. But the change management required to adjust the process to add things like ship date into the system where the customer can now see it is a change. It's a change to the process, right? And if we can't even do those things, don't talk to me about leads and doing videos and trying to build pipeline, because we can't even take care of the money that we're already getting, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And yeah, oh my God, this is such a steep hill to climb. Hopefully, we get there someday.
Yeah.
Okay, so going on again, like just another visual that these are the building blocks, and we'll be talking about the data model right now. A quick sneak peek. So, we'll be talking about various data models, not one today, because yes, winning by design. So if you're not familiar with it, there's this typical thing. There was this typical funnel that people used to think about, like you put in more leads, some of them would convert, and then the narrowest one is like the bottom of the funnel, what sales would call them, and then you start getting revenue. But what we think of as a data model, and I don't know, I forgot the sequence of my slide, is it's not a funnel, it's a bow tie, because it is, yes, you have more volume, which then reduces as a funnel, but you also need to expand on that revenue, exactly as what you said, right? Like you need to maintain those customers and make sure that you're getting more revenue, you're getting the compound effect, and you're expanding your revenue from all those customers that converted. It doesn't stop there. So we think of the bow tie, and I'll go more into detail, but just wanted to paint a picture that there are types of revenue models as well, which we'll go into a little bit. And maybe actually this should have been later slides. Sorry for that, feeling forward right now. But the reason you need different data models is because different sorts of businesses need to focus on different KPIs to be able to get maximum revenue. For example, if you're a non-recurring revenue business, if you don't have recurring revenue, you just have like one-time purchases, you need to focus more on customer acquisition, which is the left side of the bow tie, which I'll get into in a second. If you're a subscriptions, if you need recurring revenue, then both left and right are really important, because yes, you need to focus on getting more customers. You need to make sure that you're servicing them, they're seeing value, so that they keep renewing with you. And then if you're a consumption or a usage based revenue, then you absolutely need to dedicate more focus for retention, because the more you will be spending a lot of time in getting time and energy and money in getting customers, but then you need to make sure that they retain, because with the example that I shared, only when they hit year 4 or 5, or only when they hit a certain usage metric, will they actually make you money, and otherwise you just keep losing money. You might have a lot of questions, but let me just go into next slides just to get more
Yeah.
clarity. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So this is the bow tie model that we were talking about, right? It's not just a funnel, it's a funnel and more, is how I like to think about it, right? So the concept is that you have contacts. Let's just focus on this right now, and we'll talk about this in a second. Are you seeing my cursor, by the way, Chris? The
Yes, I am.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I just want to make sure when I say this, you actually know what I'm saying. Okay. So this is you're thinking about your contacts. This is the dark funnel here. You don't know who is looking at you, who's talking about your business, who needs you. We're talking about how do you create awareness for your business. How are you creating awareness? How are your contacts getting, not just about your business, but also knowing that, hey, this is the problem in the market right now. You're creating awareness. Then you want to educate people. Like, these are the people who are trying to educate themselves, where, okay, I know this is a problem. Now what do I do about this? What are the solutions? What do I need to do here? Then there are a few options that you need to do, and you're in the select phase. Like, okay, is this particular business, like, say for example, if I am the business right now, people are, and I help people build their data models in HubSpot, for example. So people are, right now we're just generating awareness that, hey, we need to, businesses cannot track data. Then we are educating, you can track your data by having a revenue. We're creating a data model. Then you're selecting, I can build you a data model, or Chris can build you a data model, right? So people are selecting, like, who do I want to work with? That's why I've highlighted these sales stages. So sales does not entirely take up the select phase. There is prospecting, there is a lot that can happen. So this is why people are going through the sales process and seeing if they want to become a customer. This middle portion is when they're committed to you, they want to be your customer, they've signed the deal, you pay the money, or whatever it is. Then comes onboarding. You activate them, you make sure that you're delivering on your promise, you're activating them, you're building that trust. After a certain point, they start seeing impact, they bring on more people from the team, you get more adoption, or if there's recurring revenue, there's cross sells, upsells, all of that. And that's when you expand your revenue. This is the whole concept of the bow tie model, which is why it's an inverted funnel. Well, funnel and inverted funnel and things like that. I'll pause here for a second. Any thoughts?
So many. Uh, I mean, ultimately it makes sense, and we've got to find a way. Like I
Mhm.
think of, you know, uh, like some of the infinity symbol models, like just getting clear that there's no dropout, like
Mhm.
in so many businesses right now. And a clear red flag as soon as you see it is when all of the diagrams related to growth end at closed one,
Yep,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, this is the
Um,
biggest challenge to that mentality. You're absolutely right, because you're right. A lot of businesses just think that funnel and then that's it. How much revenue did we generate? And that's the end of, this is how we are growing. But this is how you stay in business. Like, the right side of the bow tie is how you, yeah, stay in business. Like, you'll start this way, but then if you want to stay here long term, that's what you do. So, but the thing is that this model is still incomplete. This is where, okay, it is the framework, but it's the starting point of a framework. You also need to think about what is your business model and what you take away from this. Like, what are the KPIs that you need to focus on? Okay, you've identified a contact, they're interested in, they're engaged. Now you are now they're really a priority because they are in the select phase. They are, it's the right time, they want to make a decision. You want them to commit to your business. Now they're ready, they've experienced you enough. Now how do we get recurring impact out of them, and how do we get maximum impact, right? Now, thinking through all of this based on your business model is the next step. Okay. So let's just, do you have a hard stop in a minute? I know we have, like, I don't have, but
I don't, and I'm very excited for what you're about to talk about.
okay, that's great. So I just know how much quickly or slowly I can go.
Yeah,
Okay. So non-recurring revenue data model, right? So if you're a non-recurring revenue business, say like e-commerce or something where you're selling just total contract value jobs, right? Where you don't have a recurring revenue, everybody signs a contract, pays upfront or after the job, something like that, and you need to keep focusing on getting new business for all those contracts. Then this is your data model, right? Because of course it's a compounding effect, but you don't have to, this is where it stops. You need to track how many sessions you get. These should be your KPIs as well. You need to track how many sessions you're getting, because these are the people who are looking to generate awareness about a problem. Maybe you have blogs, you're doing LinkedIn, you're directing people to your website. You need to know how many people are even thinking about a similar problem that our business solves. Then when somebody converts onto a form and they want more resources, they want to educate themselves, they convert on your website, they get into your CRM. That's when they become leads, and that's when they are they're educating themselves on the problem. When they've shown enough intent that yes, like they've maybe filled out an MQL, like a hand raiser form, or they want to talk to sales, or they just want to engage more, attend more webinars, something like that. That's when you know that they're actually actively trying to solve the problem, and they're trying to select somebody to come in and solve that problem for them. That's when they become MQLs. Again, opportunity is somewhere in the middle of the select. Maybe this is prospecting. That's when they come in, they have a conversation with your sales team, they become an opportunity, then they become closed one. Then you need to think of through your sales and your sales finance transition, or your sales CS transition, and you need to make sure that they deliver, that you get that value. Now, the reason this is still an inverted funnel is that you need to figure out, okay, they paid you the money, but you need to figure out how to maximize their efforts here. What are the cross sells? What else can you, how can you bring them back, right? You still need to think about how do you bring them back, is basically what I'm saying. But again, whenever you do think of that, you need to bring them back here if your product just solves their need for a one time business. Am I making sense?
You are, and that's where I think some of the words that we see here and the words that we're starting to see in HubSpot, specifically order, like this order
Mhm.
object, and why I say it's going to be probably the most transformational object ever to hit HubSpot, is this difference between closed won and closed revenue,
Yes.
right? And as HubSpot wants very badly to be a customer platform,
Hmm.
this is why Commerce Hub and what they're doing there is so important. And if everybody, like, it might be as easy to say, like the fact that deal appears 3 times, like in these places, especially when it's closed revenue, right? Like for me, a deal is built to manage a sale, right? After closed one, we're not managing a sale anymore, right? This is why there's order management teams and
Hmm.
finance teams take over. And this, I love this transition here because this is where it's easy to lose a sale you thought you had, right? When you fumble this part and the experience is not great. Um, and that's why creating this separation and this space, which was what was the basis of the portal, right? Like we rely
Hmm.
on deals to do way too much after the sale, right? And we've got
Yep.
all these teams working in there. Got to create that separation, not siloing, but these places for different teams to work and own data and own records. And when you do that, it's fun to watch people like, oh, now I can call objects the way I need to call them because I don't have to fit it into the sales process as well, right? And that kind of stuff goes a long way towards getting adoption and alignment across teams.
Yes, this is such an important metric. And I think you already said everything that I wanted to say, which was that yes, you can close the deal, but did you even get paid, right?
Yeah.
So
And I'll say, like, that part is why HubSpot is not seen
mhm.
as a required platform for businesses yet. Like, there's the revenue picture that marketing and sales shows you. And then
Mhm.
there's the real revenue sitting in accounting or ERPs or wherever it exists, right? And as long as that disconnect is there, it will be a challenging conversation to treat HubSpot like it could be, like it should be for these businesses, something they build and grow their businesses on. But when we
Right.
can't do, this is why a lot of people are, you know, challenged by revenue reporting in a lot of ways in HubSpot right now. This is why it's so important to get this right. And that's why I'm excited. I think their acquisition, the recent pending acquisition, at least of Cashflow,
Yeah.
for me is much more about the billing management part than it is about the CPQ part. But I'm probably in the minority on that, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, because it's a little challenging. Like we tried to solve for this with QuickBooks, and it was a lot of challenging. It was really challenging, but I'm really excited because when HubSpot acquires something, they also kind of build it into their systems. It doesn't feel like a clunky acquisition, like we saw with Clearbit as well. Like now they have Breeze and they have Insights. It's like it's very seamless. It doesn't feel like another just bit has been added, like the favorite other platform, Salesforce.
Yeah, and I, and
So
I'll and I will I'll take this opportunity to put this on the record, but because I've been saying it offline, but I do think this is probably we're gonna see them redo like the quoting and line items infrastructure.
mm,
I feel like this is how they've done it in the past, and other companies do this. It's a fast track to replacing an older infrastructure that doesn't support a lot of the things that we've been asking for.
right.
Now you bring in this other organization that's been doing it well, but we bring it into HubSpot as they do, improving everything in the process. So I'm very hopeful for, maybe in 6 months, we're seeing a brand new, revenue infrastructure, right? It's going to be very exciting.
I got excited just the way you said it. So yeah, I really hope they do that. Yeah. Okay. That's yeah, that'll definitely be awesome. Right now, it takes a lot of time and effort and cleaning, and it takes a lot of effort to just get finance operations right in HubSpot. So if they do what you're saying they will do, then
No,
definitely.
all assumption, but they know how everybody feels about recurring revenue reporting and
Yeah.
line items and
Hmm.
quotes. So one would think, which we know they're very good at listening to their customers.
Hmm.
They just don't always act the way exactly that we want them to, and a lot of times it's because stuff like this is on the horizon. So I'm super optimistic to see because Brian Halligan mentioned during Inbound at some point he was like, watch out for Commerce Hub over the next year. And I got so excited when he said that. like, because it's the missing piece, I think, for a lot of businesses,
Hmm.
right? It's either unclear why you'd want to do that in your CRM. And those are the businesses that could just start using payment links inside of 5 minutes and realize immediate value,
Hmm.
or the businesses that understand why you want to do this. It's not enough in
Right.
HubSpot right now. It doesn't do enough, right? So both cases, it's like it's a tough conversation, but
Right.
finance teams,
Yeah.
they will get on board really quickly. Like once
Mhm.
you can like draw the line between, hey, if we communicate better during the invoicing process, that means less collections,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So
No, yeah, it's huge. You're absolutely right. And I
yeah,
can't wait for that day because I love doing everything related to. I mean, everybody wants to see how much money they have, and I think once we start giving that visibility, it'll just be fantastic.
yeah,
Okay. So talking about non-recurring again, I already spoke about sessions, leads, MQLs, and all of that. So this is what I mean by primary metrics, like how much traffic you have. V is volume, by the way, just to make sure we are aligned on the abbreviations. V is volume metrics, and CR is conversion rate. So by thinking of the bow tie, by mapping out your processes and thinking of, okay, this is marketing, this is the dark funnel, this is marketing, these are our forms, our webinars, this is our sales process, this is our onboarding, this is our customer service or support and things like that. By thinking through the whole data model and thinking through, okay, now if this is my model, these are my milestones or my metrics. And I so sessions, leads, MQLs, all of that. And I'm definitely talking about in HubSpot terms, life cycle stages. Even a session is not a life cycle stage, but just throwing it out there. And then once I know that these are my definitions, these are my milestones, defining that is defining your data model. And then you start, once you have that, then you start thinking through volume, then you start tracking this, and you start, so next step is basically this, which, or let me just talk through this here. Like once you build out your data model, define that, you start tracking volume quarter by quarter, you start seeing your business performance. Then you start also tracking conversion rates. Once you have the data, and once you you can trust that, you can start looking at conversion rates. And then you start answering the question, okay, what do I need to do to grow or to be at the same level or make sure I do the same thing that I did last quarter to hit my numbers. right? Do I get more volume or do I improve my conversion rate? Right. So this is
Yes.
just an example for example data for a non-recurring revenue model. They had these many sessions, as you can see, 1400, 12, 11, 14 again. So like it's a little bit of fluctuation, but the conversion rates definitely were fluctuating, like they were growing, right? So which is why they successfully had a lot of leads. But because they had a lot of leads, that does not automatically mean that they had a lot of opportunities, because the conversion rate from leads to opportunities went down. Volume went up, but they weren't able to keep the same conversion rate. It could be anything. It could be so this is the time where you start asking those questions. Was it resources? Were you just able to work the same? Because when you can see the number of opportunities they created were pretty much stable, 179, 186, 173. Not not too up and down, not a lot of up and down there. Then again, conversion rates, it looks like alternate. Maybe it's a seasonal thing, but it's 35, 40, 36, 44. Could be a seasonal thing, but again, that's when you start asking these questions. Then you can see, okay, how many closed won deals, what was the average deal size, how much revenue did we close, and maybe we weren't tracking invoice revenue at that point. But this is the power of tracking your data model, that you start asking the right questions. You start seeing the data in a certain way, and you start seeing which teams did well. When you look at conversion rates, you can see, can we add in some efficiency to improve on the. So yeah, the two questions: do we need to add more resources, or do we need to create more efficiency, is what leaders can start asking and answering, right?
Yes. Yeah. It starts with visibility. Like, and this is the control that you do have. Like, it's either
Mm-hmm.
in your systems or on a piece of paper or in somebody's head, right? The data exists. You have to get it out and make it meaningful, for the business, because it's not hard. Because then you can start coming from it, coming at it from like an assumption, like let's test assumptions. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not hard to see, like maybe our Christmas discounting special, brought us a lot of leads, but a lot of those were tire kickers. So we only got 19%, versus these
Exactly.
30% numbers, right? And at the same time, we looks like we closed the most revenue. So it gives you some guardrails to start to have these conversations, instead of saying like, because I wasn't intending for it to come out that way, but that's where it would be, right? Where it's like, oh, we got a bunch of leads, but they were garbage.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow revenue, we 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 did good on the revenue side. So was it actually garbage? Would we have gotten all those? Like, would the average deal have been higher if we didn't get these leads, right? And just starting to have more meaningful conversations based on actual data, right?
Exactly. It could, and again, like we can just start asking questions like, okay, maybe because there were so many leads, the sales they have experience, so they know who to talk to, so they just pick the right people to who talk to, which is why the conversion rates are down, but they focus their time and energy on it, which is why we sold a bigger average deal size, and that's why we close more revenue. It could just be anything, but at least
Yes.
it opens up that conversation.
No, that's a good point. I
Yeah.
think we do need to wrap this up. So if you've got any specific ones you want to hit on real quickly, or we could just,
Let's do that. So, like two main, which is again, this was just the introduction of concept. But then, if you have a recurring data
uh-oh.
model, yes, this it changes, because you need to think of how do you get recurring revenue. You need to define cross sells. What are ups, upgrades, downgrades? What does a churn look like? What is,
Oh
and
man.
distinguish between net new, cross
I
sell,
think
and
this is
upsell.
a I think this is a part two, like by itself, right?
Absolutely. So let me just give you a sneak peek. This is one, and then we'll talk about like different kinds of businesses. And then we also have a usage based data model, which is also completely different, because at that point you need to focus on how do we either activate them, expand them, or how do we make sure if people buy 5 seats, how do we sell them 10 seats and 20 seats, and then think of average consumptions. But yeah,
Right.
just there.
No, this is great. And this is where, like, whether we want it to be or not, it's complex. If you
Mm-hmm.
say you have goals that relate to renewals and upsells and cross sells, and then you don't set up the system to help people achieve those goals, of course, they're always focusing on new business because that's the only clear way they can get commissions that they understand, right? In clear picture, like so much of this, like you just got to build the infrastructure to support it, make it clear for everyone, so that they know how to show up in the CRM every day and know exactly what the next best step is for them. And it can be done. It's just you got to treat it more than just a group of properties. That's why we're talking about data model, right? It doesn't have to be objects. It's just understanding what data gets created, what data gets needs to be maintained, and what
Exactly.
data gets leveraged, throughout the process so that our teams can work faster and bring in, more deals, more revenue faster. And it just happens when you do that.
Absolutely. And I just want to like end this by saying I don't remember if I said this on the conversation on like the call or before when we went live, but this is a full-time job. Like this is how it's supposed to be done. I don't know where you are in your business and I don't know who needs to hear this, but I hope the right people are hearing this. Is you need that structure, you need that system. And don't tell your marketing leader to focus on this. They have their full-time job, they have their priorities and goals. Don't tell your sales leader or your CS leader or some intern that's happened that you hired, which was really smart and brilliant, and you think that they can understand technology. It's not their job. You need a proper strategic person who takes care of your data model, your business, and gives you that feedback and drives that growth. So please listen to them or hire them.
Yes. No, that's a good point. And that's why we're going to have a part two for sure, because we can just dig into that complexity in a way that hopefully, people can understand. And because resourcing this properly is where there's
Mhm.
always a gap, right? And that's
Absolutely.
why we don't hit goals. Like it's not another salesperson. It's going to solve this, right? Like more volume inside the top of the funnel is not going to help if renewals aren't getting done, right? So
Mhm.
cool.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming by today. Learned a lot, and I hope it was valuable. This has definitely got up to like 6 people live on the YouTube feed, so that's a record. So
It's great.
apparently you bring them out. So thank you so much for coming by, and hope you'll come back for a part two.
Absolutely. I love talking about this and I love talking about everything related to RevOps. So part two, three, five, whatever you need, I'm here.
Awesome. That's a weekly series, I think I heard. Um, yeah. So look at your processes, folks, and if you have these goals of renewals and just post sales revenue activities, take a look at your processes, take a look at your CRM, find those opportunities, and let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Awesome.